Let's take a look at a standard interlinear. Go up to Library, and in the Find box, type Interlinear. And select from the list the Lexham Greek-English Interlinear New Testament. Now, if the resource doesn't open to Mark 1, go ahead, pause the video, and type in Mark 1:1. Now you'll notice several lines of information here provided in the resource. I don't want all of them to show right now, so I'm going to go up to Display and turn some of them off. I'll explain what each of these are in another video. I'm going to deselect Greek lemma, morphology, English lexical value, and Louw-Nida entry, so that all I have left are manuscript and English literal translation. Now here's the key characteristic of a standard interlinear. The original language of the source material or source text is kept on top, while an English literal translation is provided below. This arrangement gives priority to the original language of the source material by retaining its word order. Now you'll notice with some of this English literal translation, you'll see numbers next to words. These numbers indicate the order in which you would read this in English. So for example, just as it is written in the prophet Isaiah. Now how about the next line? Behold, I am sending my messenger before your face, who will prepare your way. Now let's take a look at a reverse interlinear. Let's now open a Bible that has a reverse interlinear pane. Go to Library and type into the Find box the letters NASB for New American Standard Bible. And let's drag this tab on top of this other window. Now if you don't have this reverse interlinear pane displayed, go ahead and click the button up here, Interlinear. You notice that you toggle it on and off with that. And this reverse interlinear is exactly the opposite of the standard interlinear. Notice that priority is being given to the translation, the NASB in this case, that the English appears on top of the Greek, whereas below, in the standard interlinear, the Greek appeared on top of the English. Now this arrangement is probably more accessible for English Bible readers and probably already more familiar, but it also still allows you to interact with the original languages with the information in this reverse interlinear pane below. Now I want you to know that we have several other major Bible translations with reverse interlinear functionality, and they are the ESV, the NASB, the KJV, the NKJV, the NRSV, and the NLT and the NIV still to come. In the next series of videos, we're going to look at each of these lines, what they are, and what they have to offer. Now for an overview of the contents of the reverse interlinear pane. First, this line, called surface, refers to the text of the translation. You'll notice that this line, the beginning of the Gospel of Jesus, matches the surface line here, the beginning of the Gospel of Jesus. Next, the manuscript surface line refers to the text of the original language, which in this instance is Greek. Now if we were in the Old Testament, it would be Hebrew. But you'll notice that this line here, arche tu euangeliou, matches this line down here in our Greek Bible, arche tu euangeliou. The next line is manuscript transliteration. Transliteration refers to putting the letters of one writing system into the letters of another. In this line, the Greek manuscript has been put into English letters. This is important because it allows you to sound out the Greek word even without knowing how to read Greek. Also, a lot of commentaries use transliteration instead of actual Greek because they want it to be more accessible for English readers. This next line, lemma, refers to the word or form of a word that is listed at the beginning of a dictionary entry. So, if I were to look up this word here, euangeliou, in a Greek dictionary, I would see this word here, euangelion, at the beginning of the entry. Now, lemma transliteration is the same as manuscript transliteration, except it's a transliteration of the lemma form. Now for the line morph. In the reverse interlinear, morph refers to the form of a word. Is this word a verb or a noun? Is it feminine or masculine? Is it singular or plural? Next, I want to look at the Strong's line. This line is named after James Strong, who, over about 100 years ago, developed a numbering system that enables people to look up Greek and Hebrew words without actually being able to read or know Greek or Hebrew. These numbers are links to his dictionary, which is also called Strong's. And if you float over these words, you get a pop-up from his dictionary. This line here, called lo, and these numbers here refer to the numbering system created by Johannes Lau and Eugene Nida, who authored the Greek-English lexicon based on semantic domains. I'll explain what these numbers are and how they work in another video. Remember, the primary function of the reverse interlinear is to help you make the transition from the English into the original language. And since we're in the New Testament, this means making the transition into Greek. Now previously we looked at each one of these sections here as lines. But actually, you can also look at them as columns. So all of this information here is tied to this English word here. Now as I showed you before, you can turn off the interlinear pane, and hovering over the word, all the information is still there. It's still tied to the English word. And with this information in place, you can do two main kinds of action. The first is search, and the second is lookup. You can follow along with me here as I walk you through both of these. So the first action is searching. You can use this if you want to find all the occurrences of a word within a resource like, say, a dictionary or a Bible. So let's say we're interested in this word here, written, in English, and in Greek, grapho. To start a search, all we need to do is right-click on the mouse, and it'll bring up a menu. Now here you can see the lines that were available to us in the reverse interlinear pane. Manuscript, lemma, morph, Strong's numbers, and Lau-Nida semantic domains. For now, I just want to show you the differences between searching by manuscript and searching by lemma. Remember, manuscript refers to searching for this exact form that's found in the Greek New Testament at that particular spot. Now, if you search by lemma, you'll be searching all forms of the word, not just the one here that occurs at this particular spot. Let me show you what I mean. Let's choose manuscript first. And now let's say, search this resource for searching the NASB. You'll notice the hits here, 67 hits, 67 results, and 67 verses. Now let's go back to our right-click menu over here for the word written. And now let's select lemma and compare the search results. Now remember, manuscript is searching for this exact form of the word. Lemma is searching for all forms. And let's say, search this resource. Now it appeared over here, but let's go ahead and move it to this other side. And you'll notice the difference in the number of hits. 191 results in 180 verses. In fact, let's just put these side by side instead. Now you can see that the search for lemma included the forms of our first search from the manuscript, as well as a whole lot of other ones. Now, besides searching for where words occur, you can also look up information on words. And because Greek has been tied to these English words, you're able to look up information on the Greek and not just the English. Just simply right-click and make sure that lemma is selected. Remember, this refers to the dictionary form that you would find at the beginning of an article or entry. And scrolling down, here are those dictionaries or lexicons. Now, your order may vary, or the resources that you have here may be different. I'm just going to click on one of these just for illustration. The Dictionary of Biblical Languages with Semantic Domains. Now remember the form that you saw in the right-click menu. It's the same form that you see right here. This is the lemma form, and it's the form that occurs at the beginning of the dictionary article. And here in this article we have information about this word. Here's the transliteration, how you would write this Greek word with English letters. The word's part of speech, it's a verb. Links to other dictionaries or Greek lexicons. And some glossary translations or brief definitions. Now, dictionaries or lexicons have different information included in them, and it varies in scope and in length. So if you'd like to see another lexicon, simply follow the same procedure that I did. Right-click on the word, make sure that lemma is selected, and scroll down and open another lexicon. Now in the next video, I'll show you an easier way to organize all of this information. The Bible Word Study Guide is a guide that you can use to organize all your information about a word. All you need to do to launch the Bible Word Study Guide is to right-click on the word you want to study, make sure that lemma is selected here, and in the submenu, click on Bible Word Study. And I'm going to drag this over to the next window here. I'm just going to walk you through a few of the sections here in Bible Word Study Guide and how it combines several of those other steps that I just showed you. Here you can see the lemma form of the word, grapho, and here's a section called lemma, which includes the lemma form along with links to dictionary articles. So whereas before we looked up each word individually by the right-click menu, we're launching a Bible Word Study gives you links to each one of the dictionaries so that you don't have to go through that step over and over. And you float over it, and it takes you right to the article. You can see there the lemma form. These are just previews of the different articles. Below is the translation section, which shows you how this Greek word has been translated within a given translation. And in our case, this is the NASB. Further down, there's the textual searches section, which is basically a lemma search within these different bodies of literature. So you might remember how we did a search within the New Testament for the lemma form, grapho, and we came up with 191 results in 180 verses. Well, this has already done all that work for us, and within these different bodies of literature, which are roughly laid out in chronological order, clicking on these hyperlinks will display the search results for us in another window. We'll get into more of what the Bible Word Study Guide can do when we get to our section on the Bible Word Study. So what is a lexicon? A lexicon is a dictionary. Now before we look at a Greek lexicon, let's look at an English one first. Go up to Library and type in Webster for Webster's Dictionary. And let's select Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, 11th edition. Now a lexicon or dictionary is a reference book that lists words of a language, usually in alphabetical order, and gives some information about those words. This information may include the word's history, it may include definitions, and examples of uses. People who make lexicons are called lexicographers. Their job is to look at the usage of words in context, taking notes of similarities and differences in every occurrence. So just to get an idea of the process, take a look at this next slide and the different uses of the word run in the paragraph. The returning champions ran onto the field to the applause of the crowd. This was the big game. Outside, tickets ran $500 a seat. The expectations for the year's team ran high all season. All kinds of celebrities were in attendance, even the senator who ran for president last year. Now with the game tied, the clock running down, the coach decided to run the team's signature play. Now when you think about it, the word run was actually used differently each time in this paragraph. Its meaning changed because of its relationship to other words. Now as a lexicographer, I would separate out each instance and try to define or explain what was going on. Take a look at this next slide. Now the first occurrence, the returning champions ran onto the field, is actually describing a kind of movement. The second, outside, tickets ran $500 a seat, isn't talking about tickets running with legs. It's talking about a cost. Number 3, the expectations for the year's team ran high all season. Now again, expectations don't have legs. This is talking about remaining at a certain amount or quality. Number 4, even the senator who ran for president last year. Again, the senator didn't actually run. It means that he entered into an election. Number 5, with the game tied, the clock running down. Didn't mean literally that the clock was running down off a hill or a mountain. Instead, it means that there was a decreasing amount in time left in the game. Number 6, the coach decided to run the team's signature play. Now, this isn't talking about a play running through the field, but it's talking about utilizing an offensive play, particularly in the sport of football. This is just a glimpse of the kind of work that lexicographers do, and is a glimpse of the type of work that you're going to learn how to do and apply into your study as you watch these videos. Now let's take a look back at our English dictionary. Here's the dictionary article for the word run. Here we have a little bit about the history of the word, some definitions, and some uses. Now you may want to just pause the video here and skim through the list. It's really amazing how long it is, but what's more amazing is the fact that you've got most of these uses in your head. You've heard them and used them even without thinking about it. And that's why we do word studies, because words can be used in a variety of ways. Now if you're working in the New Testament, you're going to want to work with a Greek lexicon or dictionary instead of an English one. And we're going to look at those resources in the next video. In this section, I want to walk you through a few of the lexicons that we'll be using in our study. The purpose of this section isn't to give an evaluation of each lexicon, nor is it really to show you how to use them quite yet. All of those things we'll cover in the word study section. For now, I just want to give you a basic introduction, really two sorts of things, characteristics of the lexicons, how are they organized, and what kind of information is included in each one. So just introductory, want to get you a basic overview, get you oriented to each one of these. First, let's open up a Bible. We're going to open up the English Standard Version, so we can just type into the command bar here, ESV, and we'll open that. And the word that we want to look at in this passage is the word word. And like I showed you before with the reverse interlinear tool and with the reverse interlinear pane, this helps you make the transition from the English word to the Greek. And the transliteration helps us pronounce the word. So we're looking at this Greek word, transliteration here, this Greek word, logos. And you'll remember below from the previous video on the reverse interlinear that we have two lines here, two links to two different lexicons here. We can click on these links and open up a lexicon, but instead of doing that, I'm going to actually launch the Bible Word Study, and that'll give us links to all the lexicons that we have available to us in our library. So I'm going to do that by going back up to the English word here, word. I'm going to right-click. And remember, we want to have lemma selected, not manuscript. If you have manuscript selected, you'll have a pretty sparse menu to draw from here. But if you have lemma selected, you'll notice that you can have a variety of options here. We can search. We have links to our different dictionaries. For right now, I want us to look at the Bible Word Study and launch that. Now remember, we had the lemma form selected in our right-click menu, and there's a section here called lemma because this is the dictionary form of the word, and below, of course, we have our dictionaries. And I went ahead and clicked more. These are all the dictionaries that I have available in my library. Now what the Bible Word Study did was to look up the lemma form of the word, and I remember this is the form that you would find at the beginning of a dictionary article. Looks up this lemma form in every Greek dictionary that you have in your library. You can see I have quite a list of them here. You may have more, you may have less. For now, I just want to go through the first several of these, and even if you don't have them, it would benefit you to continue to watch the video, just because you may purchase this later, and it's also going to be used in reference. I'll be referring to these different lexicons and other videos, so you want to have an idea of what I'm talking about. So let's click on this first link. It's quite the abbreviation. And this opens up a concise dictionary of the words in the Greek Testament and the Hebrew Bible, which is a concise version of the very popular James Strong's Greek and Hebrew dictionary. And I just want to walk you through how this dictionary is organized and the contents of the article. You can see over here that this dictionary is organized alphabetically, and looking at the article, we have here the Strong's number, which I showed you in the reverse interlinear, that this number is tied to the Greek word logos. And here we have, of course, the Greek word, along with its transliteration, so putting the Greek letters into corresponding English letters. And we have a pronunciation here. We also have links to another article in this dictionary, to related words. And what follows in the rest of this is information about how the word is translated, what sort of senses of uses it has. And you'll notice the article contains sort of glossary definitions or translations of how this word is used, and its scope is limited to just the New Testament. These expressions here, for example, of the Christ found in the New Testament, different ways it's translated, account, cause, communication. But you notice that even though it's mentioning ways that this Greek word can be translated in the New Testament, you don't see any references. There's no Bible references in here mentioning that, well, in Acts it's translated this way, or in Luke or one of Paul's letters it might be translated cause. You won't find that in the concise version. You'll only find really ways that this Greek word is or can be translated. Now let's check out the next resource in this list, TDNT, which stands for the Theological Dictionary of the New Testament. And right away in the article you can see a big difference between what is found here in TDNT and what we saw in the concise version of Strong's. The article ranges from here to here, and in TDNT, this whole article here is actually just a table of contents for the entire article, which spans pages and pages. This dictionary is organized like Strong's in terms of it's organized alphabetically, but you're going to see that it has far more information than Strong's does. And just for starters, there's a lot of Greek involved here. You'll notice that there isn't any transliteration. You'd have to be able to read this or know how to pronounce it in order to really make sense of this article. There are two key characteristics to TD&T. The first is that it looks at words in terms of their history of usage. So for example, you'll see that in this table of contents, see that there's reference to the usage of these words in the Greek world. It looks at the words in certain points or periods of time, and it takes note of how the usages of the word developed over time. The next key characteristic is that it actually provides theological commentary on the words. So for example, if we were to go over here to the table of contents pane and just look at the word logos in the Greek and Hellenistic world, you can see that the article actually provides lengthy discussion on the uses of this word. What makes TD&T very useful is that it actually has a lot of primary source material. Like you'll find literature referred to that is outside the Bible to give you an understanding of how this word was used in other cultures outside the New Testament. At the same time, you'll find New Testament references also, for example, this from Matthew 18:23, where logos is used, perhaps an economic or commercial term. But you can also see how the word is used in greater detail in the New Testament. I'm going to come over here to the table of contents and scroll down and look at this word and speech in the New Testament. You'll get to a subarticle that has detailed discussion on how this word is used specifically in the New Testament, which is just a lot of information on this word. And actually in print, TD&T is a massive 10 volumes. Know that this is a lot of information and it can be intimidating and overwhelming. For now, remember, we just want to get an idea of the kinds of material that TD&T has in it, how it's organized. If you start using it, the first thing you'll want to do is just look over the content section of the article and see what's included in the article. Remember that TD&T is going to structure its articles by history of usage. It's going to include a lot of primary material, and it's going to include a lot of commentary on the word instead of just translations or definitions. Now, one other thing I should mention about TD&T is that not every word that appears in the New Testament is included in this dictionary. Only the words that the authors and editors of the dictionary thought were theologically significant are included. So keep that in mind as you use the dictionary. Now there's another lexicon under TD&T, which goes by the abbreviation TD&TA, and the A stands for abridged. And you'll notice right away a huge difference between the unabridged version and the abridged version. Whereas the unabridged version included almost exclusively Greek, the abridged version includes transliteration, so that an English reader can find this lexicon or dictionary much more accessible. And included in this heading section is translation or glossary type translation of each Greek word. And you'll notice that the table of contents section here at the beginning of the article is missing. It's probably because this is an abridged version and so it's not needed. But TD&TA still retains the overall structure of the unabridged version. So here you have in the Greek world the senses of these four words in the Greek world. And scrolling down, more specifically, logos in the Greek and Hellenistic world, and then followed by the subcategories, the meaning of the word logos and its multiplicity, the development of the logos concept in the Greek world. All of this follows the same structure or format as the unabridged version. You notice too that much of the commentary remains the same, and references to other bodies of literature are made, but you won't see any links to any of that, whereas you did before in TD&T. You might see a link here to Herodotus or another ancient Greek writer. Here I have references to Plato and Socrates without actual links to their works. And jumping down, just want you to notice how short this article is, or actually the length of the article. One, the basic and general aspects of the use of lego or logos, going all the way down to the more specific and technical meanings of the word. Now let's take a look at the unabridged version. So here we are at number 1, basic and general aspects of the use of lego and logos. Remember, there's no transliteration here. A lot of Greek included in the article, and scrolling down some more, and here we come to that second sub-article, more specific and technical meanings. So TDNTA organizes its articles like the unabridged version, organizes them by periods of time, and it also includes commentary on the words, but doesn't have as much primary material in each article. Now the next dictionary I want to show you is abbreviated EDNT, which stands for the Exegetical Dictionary of the New Testament. Now this dictionary is like TDNT and TDNTA in that it gives lengthy discussion about the meaning of a word, and so it functions more like a commentary on words than the Strong's Dictionary, for example, that provided a list of definitions and translations. This dictionary is organized alphabetically, and like TDNT, it features a kind of table of contents or contents section here at the beginning of the article. You have the Greek word here, along with its transliteration and some translations of the word. And if you look at the contents section here, you can see that the Exegetical Dictionary of the New Testament organizes its information or its content differently than TDNT does. Here you can see that it lists occurrences first, goes over the meaning, and then it talks about the word, gives commentary on the word in the sections relating to bodies of literature. So whereas TDNT looked at the word over a period of time in different historical periods, this article looks at the word in its different bodies of literature. So for example, the Synoptic Gospels here, or the Gospels in general, looks at the usage of the word logos in Paul, looks at the usage of the word logos in John's writings, as well as the other writings in the New Testament. Now, since EDNT's focus isn't to look at the historical development of a word, you won't find as many references to material or literature outside the New Testament. Now, below this content section here, you see a list of writings. This is a bibliography. Most of it is actually in German because EDNT was originally written in German and only translated into English later. TDNT was also written in German and translated later. The bibliography, for the most part, contains articles from journals that deal most exclusively with the usage of the word logos. So, for example, here's an article, Jesus as Logos, in Hebrews, chapter 4, verses 12 and 13. EDNT also provides concordance-like material, giving you the amount of occurrences of the word logos in the New Testament, where that word occurs the most, for example, 129 times in the Gospels, and it mentions where the word doesn't appear. For example, it doesn't appear in Philemon or 2 John or Jude. Then, in another section, it gives you the range of meanings that the word has. Here in this sub-article, number 2. So this Greek word logos can be used in a variety of ways. And then scrolling down, the third section refers to the use of the word in specific bodies of literature. So for example, the preaching of Jesus. There are even subcategories of the use of the word logos within Jesus' preaching. For example, the use of the word logos in his parables, of the different soils. And then scrolling down, the section under the number 4 talks about Paul's use of the word logos in his letters. One of the key differences between the Exegetical Dictionary of the New Testament and the Theological Dictionary of the New Testament is that EDNT includes all the words that appear in the Greek New Testament, whereas TDNT only includes the words that the authors thought to be theologically significant. And of course, the other key difference is that the articles are organized by body of literature, typically, as opposed to TDNT structure, which is by historical period. Now, the next dictionary I want to look at here is abbreviated BDAG, but it actually goes by the fuller name of A Greek English Lexicon of the New Testament and Other Early Christian Literature. The abbreviation BDAG comes from the last names of the men who authored and edited the work, Bauer, Danker, Arndt, and Gingrich. This lexicon is organized alphabetically, but the structure or the layout of information in the article is different than what we've seen with TDNT and EDNT. Though the lexicon deals with Greek and has references to ancient literature, the structure is a lot more like what we found in Merriam-Webster's, where you have a definition and a translation of the word, along with examples of its use. Whereas the other dictionaries organize the information around historical use or organize the information in terms of occurrences and different types of literature, BDAG tries to classify the different uses of this Greek word here, logos. And two things make this lexicon unique. The first is that it goes beyond providing just different ways that this Greek word is translated in an English Bible. It actually gives definitions of the Greek word in English. So, for example, one classification of the use of the Greek word logos is a communication whereby the mind finds expression. And what we have in italics is a English representation or English translation of that same idea. And underneath this, we have another subsection as an expression. And here we have a little cultural information as to the classification of this use. Oratorical ability plus exceptional performance were distinguishing marks in Hellenic society, hence the frequent association with, and this abbreviation here, this lambda, Greek letter lambda, refers back to the lemma form here, logos, frequent association of logos and ergon, which is translated frequently deed. So it's saying that oftentimes these two Greek words were used together as distinguishing marks within Greek society or Hellenic society. Now, the other characteristic that makes BDAG unique is the amount of references that it has in the articles. You can see here what's in blue, references to other early or ancient Greek literature, but you'll also see in bolded references to the New Testament. Now you can see there's a lot of other information included in the article. There's a lot of Greek, there's a lot of abbreviations to different other literature. I just want you to get a sense for how this lexicon is organized, how the information is structured by different classifications, and the amount of references that it has in the article. Now, there's a lot of information contained in this article. A lot of it is in Greek, and a lot of it is abbreviated. But don't let that intimidate you. At this point, we just want to look at how the articles are structured and what type of information is included in it. Now, the next lexicon we want to look at is called Louw-Nida. This lexicon is named after the two authors of the dictionary, Johannes Louw and Eugene Nida. The fuller name of this lexicon is the Greek English Lexicon of the New Testament based on semantic domains. And right away, you can see that the organization of this lexicon is different from the ones that we've previously seen. In the table of contents pane over here, we're used to seeing Greek words arranged in alphabetical order. But in this resource, they're organized by semantic domain. Domain numbers 1 through 12 refer to objects or entities. Domains 13 all the way down to 57 refer to events or verbal actions. The other domains, 58 through 90, refer to abstractions. These are words that aren't objects or entities and aren't verbal actions. We'll look at an example of the contents of these domains in our example here of the word logos. But first, let's take a look at this entry here. First, I should point out that these domains are part of Volume 1. There's an entire second volume that is included here, which has the more traditional format we're used to seeing, which is the words arranged in alphabetical order. Now back to the article here, the entry looks very different from what we've seen before. The Greek word, at least that's similar, as well as an M for the grammatical gender. Logos' grammatical gender is masculine. And these different lines here represent the range of meaning that this Greek word logos has. And you'll notice there are numbers next to each of these meanings. And you'll notice that the first 5, A through E, all start with the number 33. So logos can mean statement, speech, gospel, treatise, word. Let's take a look at this semantic domain. This number 33 refers back to the domain here for communication. And you can see that each one of these meanings here, statement, speech, gospel, treatise, and word, all belong to the category or semantic domain of communication. Let's take a look at the use of the word logos as gospel. Now I just want to walk you through the content of this article. Here you have the Lounaida number that we saw in the previous screen, along with the Greek word here, and of course the grammatical gender specified here. Now Lounaida, this lexicon, like BDAG, includes a definition of the Greek word as related to its context. So we read here, the content of what is preached about Christ, or about the good news. And in this brief article, we have 2 references to the New Testament, which give an illustration of this use of the word logos. But now let's go back to the previous article or entry that showed the range of meaning that logos has. Let's use this back arrow to take us there. And now you might recognize this numbering format from somewhere else. And if you thought of the reverse interlinear, you're right. Let's look back at the English Standard Version. And you'll notice that the word here is selected, and down here it's highlighted in the reverse interlinear pane, and that in this Lounaida line we have the number here, LN 33100. And notice that if we hover over this word, we get the entry from that specific domain number. 33100 is a reference to a title for Jesus in the Gospel of John as a reference to the content of God's revelation. Now the cool thing about the integration of the Lounaida numbers into the reverse interlinear is that in each instance, in each word of the New Testament, we've assigned the Lounaida number that fits best with the context. Now what I mean by that is that in the Lounaida article for logos, you saw that logos has a range of meanings, and there are several here. But what we've done is we've looked back at the context here and have determined that out of those different senses, the one 33100, which refers to word or logos as a title for Christ, is the one that contextually fits best. Now this is pretty straightforward when dealing with a word like logos, because it really wouldn't fit if we said in the beginning was the account. Now that wouldn't make sense. So we have a pretty good understanding that it's the title of Christ that's being referred to here. But the Lounaida numbers come in handy with other parts of speech, especially prepositions. Look, for example, at the first word here in the sentence. In English it's in, but in Greek it's en. And down in the reverse interlinear pane, we have a link to the Lounaida number. And if we click on this link, we're taken to the article. We get a definition here, markers of a point of time which is simultaneous to or overlaps with another point in time. So there's a definition followed by an English translation or gloss, when or at the time of. But this Greek preposition, just like logos, has a range of meanings. In order to see that range of meanings at a glance, I'm going to go over to this menu, and I'm going to click on the Send Hyperlinks here. Now, when I double click on this word, en, I'm going to get or jump to the exact article on this word. And so here's the Greek preposition en with all of its various ranges of meaning. That is, this preposition can express all these different kinds of relationships depending on the context. Now, in John 1:1, you saw the numbers 67:33, which is a reference to time. So scholars use context to determine which sense is the right one. By context, I mean this word "n" is in relationship to other words in the sentence. And based on that relationship, a certain idea is being expressed. So let's look back at the English Standard Version for one moment. And you'll see that this preposition, "n," is working with another word, arche, which is translated the beginning. Now, beginning is a reference to time. Beginning isn't an instrument. Beginning isn't a person. Beginning is, as I said, a reference to time. And so, because this word is in relationship with this word, together they indicate the meaning indicated by this Louw-Nida number, markers of a point in time which is simultaneous to or overlaps with another point in time. Okay, so that was quite a bit of detail about how Louw-Nida numbers integrate with our reverse interlinears. But I don't want you to miss the main point of this overview of the Louw-Nida lexicon. Remember that the key characteristic of this lexicon is that it's organized not just by alphabet, but by semantic domain, these categories of meaning. The second is that these specific articles, like 33-100, contain a definition, just like BDAG does, and they also contain translations. And lastly, you should know that the scope of this lexicon is limited to just the New Testament, so you're going to see almost exclusively references to the New Testament in this lexicon. In the previous section, I spent a lot of time going through the Louw-Nida lexicon. I did this because the two other lexicons that I want to introduce you to now use the Louw-Nida numbers in their dictionary entries. The first of these lexicons is called the Lexham Analytical Lexicon to the Greek New Testament. Now, unlike the Louw-Nida lexicon, this one is organized alphabetically. But now you'll notice that the actual layout of the information is different than anything we've really seen before. Other lexicons are organized by time period, some of them organized by classification. This lexicon organizes the information by Louw-Nida sense. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's put these lexicons side by side. And I'll close the contents pane here. Now you'll see that the numbers in the analytical lexicon correspond to the numbers in the Louw-Nida lexicon. Here is 13.115, 13.115, 28.25, 28.25, 30.13, and 30.13, and so on. Now, unlike Louw-Nida, the analytical lexicon does not provide any definitions. It only provides translations, or shows how the word is translated. Let's scroll down to the usage that we found in John 1:1, which is LN 33-100. And this brief subsection shows that this usage is used 10 times in the New Testament, is translated word, appears 3 times alone in John 1:1, and also appears in a couple of these other passages in the New Testament, or verses in the New Testament. Now, if you were to look at this entry in Louw-Nida, you'd see a definition, and actually only one reference to the New Testament. So how did we get these other references to the New Testament put along underneath this Louw-Nida sense? Well, remember how I said that we have tied these Louw-Nida sense numbers into our interlinear Bibles? Now what we've done is attach the Louw-Nida sense number to this Greek word here at this specific point in this context. But this usage of logos is not only found here, it's found in other places. I'm going to go up to this menu and send all hyperlinks here. And now I'm going to click on Revelation 6:9, and click on the English word, word, and you'll see that in the reverse interlinear pane, the underlying Greek word is logos, and it has these two senses tied to the word. So in this context, logos can be the title for Jesus, or it can be the content of communication, as in this sense, 33.98. And now in creating the analytical lexicon, we've looked for every place in the New Testament where the domain 33.100 has been used. And that's how we come up with these references attached to this sense here. Or to put it another way, if you were to look at each one of these references here in this article, you would see the domain number 33.100 at the bottom in the Launida line of the reverse interlinear pane. Now there's probably a lot of information about how these two resources work together and how they're integrated. But just remember the key points here of this lexicon. The first is that it's organized by Launida sense, and the second is that it doesn't have definitions like Launida does, only translations. However, it includes more references to the New Testament than Launida does. Let me move over this tab to a single window and open this resource. DBL Greek stands for the Dictionary of Biblical Languages with Semantic Domains for Greek, and this is of the New Testament. Now this dictionary, like many of the other ones, is organized alphabetically. That may have been a little confusing since in the title you heard semantic domains. You might have expected that this dictionary would actually be organized by that information, but instead semantic domains have been integrated into the dictionary entries themselves. So here you see Launida number 33.98. And actually the layout of information is structured by Launida sense, just like we saw in the analytical lexicon. And these words that are bolded here correspond to the words from the Launida article on logos. So here we have statement and speech, gospel, treatise. If we open up Launida, you'll see same words here, statement, speech, gospel, treatise, down to word. And included as well in the entry is the definition from Launida and a few biblical references for illustration. Now you'll notice that what DBL doesn't have is a translation of this meaning here, Greek word logos, into English. And I just want to point out a few other things about the layout of information. And this number 3364 is the GK number, or Goodrich-Kohlenberger number, which is a numbering system like Strong's designed to help people make the transition from the English word to the Greek word in a dictionary. Next is our Greek word in its transliteration, along with some grammatical information here that it's a noun and that it's masculine in grammatical gender, along with a number here. Next is a link to the Hebrew version of DBL and a corresponding number to a article or entry for the Hebrew word that is related in meaning to the Greek word. And that's followed by a link to the Strong's lexicon, then followed by a link to TDNT. Now there are some other lexicons over here that I could go through too, but the ones we've looked at are the ones I'm going to be referring to the most. If you feel like you have a pretty good handle on what I've shown you so far, you could probably work your way through some of these other lexicons. Now we've covered a lot of information in this section, and I just want to remind you that at this point in your learning, you just want to focus on how the lexicons are structured and how they lay out their information, or what kind of information they provide. We'll get into greater detail about how to use a lexicon and how to apply the information that they have or provide in the section on word studies. A Bible dictionary is a reference book that includes information on topics or concepts in or related to the Bible. These topics may include people, places, objects, or ideas. Now, in this video, I'm not going to walk through every single Bible dictionary that we have available in the platform. But what I show you about Bible dictionaries in terms of their content and organization pretty much applies to every Bible dictionary. Now, there are several ways that a Bible dictionary can be accessed through the software. I just want to show you a few. First way we can access one is to go up to Library and type into the find box title, and Bible Dictionary. And what this does is it searches for every resource that has the words Bible and dictionary in its title. Now, if you didn't have this, notice here we have 17 results back for this. If I took away title and deleted it, you would see that we have 46 different search results. And would be quite a bit of noise in here of things that we might not want, like a glossary of morphosyntactic database terminology. Might not want that. So if you want to narrow down the search results, keep title in the find box. Now, once you've found the dictionary that you're looking for, it's just a matter of opening it and scrolling through, say, the table of contents to find the article that you're looking for, or you can simply type in something like Messiah and get to the article that way. So that's the first way. Another way to open up a Bible dictionary is perhaps you already have a topic in mind, like let's say the word gospel. And this is going to run a search that's going to look for the word gospel in your library, but it's also going to look up the word gospel in your Bible dictionaries. So this is the second way that you can access your dictionaries. A third and final way that I want to show you is that if you're already working with a Bible, let's say that you have your ESV, open, you can right-click on a word, and it brings up the menu, and you want to keep the selection in English as opposed to manuscript or lemma, like we do for our Greek studies. Keep it in the English, and you'll notice that you have a list of English dictionaries here. And let's say go ahead and select New Bible Dictionary. And it opens to the article, and here's the dictionary head word, a Greek transliteration, along with a translation. There's a little history about the word, and some concordance information as far as how many times it occurs in the New Testament, and how it's used there. And you'll notice in this article there are quite a few scripture references here. Bible dictionaries function a little like a concordance, or a puffed up concordance, in that they show you where the word occurs in Scripture. And what's especially useful are the summary statements of the Scripture reference. So the gospel not only comes from power, and then it references 1 Thessalonians, which talks about the gospel came to you not only in word, but also in power, but is the power of God, and cites Romans 1:16, for I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation. So these summary statements, along with the scripture references, can be a great way to get an overview of a concept or a topic. Now you should also know that Bible dictionaries have articles on books of the Bible. So for example, we were just looking at the Gospel of Mark. Now if we go up here and type in Mark and click, we get to an article on the Gospel of Mark. And if we scroll down within the contents pane here, we can get an overview of the contents of this article. First, it starts out with an outline of the contents, section on authorship, who wrote the gospel, the Gospel of Mark's relationship to Matthew and Luke, as well as special characteristics of the Gospel. Now, for our purposes, what will be most helpful is this outline portion here. And it can be especially helpful for you as you're trying to plan a sermon series on the Gospel of Mark or any other book of the Bible. Here you've got immediate access as to how you can divide that sermon series up in accordance with the content of the book. And as you look at different outlines of books, it's helpful to know that you should probably consult more than one Bible dictionary. You can go up to this plus tab here, and you may have a different number of Bible dictionaries available to you. If you can find the Holman Illustrated Bible Dictionary, go ahead and click on that. And it says I'm on page 1080 here, so if your dictionary opened up to a different page number, just go ahead and type that in and scroll down to the outline section. I'm going to go ahead and split this and close the contents section. And we can look at how these two outlines compare to one another. Keep in mind these are outlines of the same book. You have the Gospel of Mark here and the Gospel of Mark here. The New Bible Dictionary has outlined the Gospel of Mark according to geographic location. So here is Jesus' earlier Galilean ministry, later Galilean ministry, and then he's on the road to Jerusalem, his ministry in Jerusalem, and then his passion and resurrection. Notice how different the outline is here in the Holman Illustrated Bible Dictionary. It's categorized or outlined based on the actions of what it says God's agent. So the Son as God's agent, the presence of God's agent extended the blessing of the kingdom, God's agent exhibited the kingdom paradox. And I'm showing you these two different outlines to encourage you that as you study, you want to consult different tools because they might have a different approach to the same book in a way that complements each other. And it's especially useful to use these outlines when you're looking at a verse or a reference to a verse out of context. It's helpful to say, well, where does that verse fit in this book? What's the surrounding context, and how can that help me understand the meaning of this particular word or verse? Oftentimes, the sayings of Jesus, or the content of the Gospels, is approached more like a string of proverbs linked together. And really, we miss the flow of the story. So by using these outlines, you get a sense of how the writers structured these stories about Jesus, or how Paul structured his letter, how Peter structured his letter. But Bible dictionaries aren't the only resource that have this kind of information. In the next video, we'll take a look at another type of resource. A Bible commentary is a resource that gives discussion on the Bible, typically in a verse-by-verse fashion. Now, there are different ways to categorize Bible commentaries. You could label one pastoral, you could label another devotional, you could even label others technical. I'm going to use two broad categories here, single volume and multi-volume. And in order to take a look at these commentaries, let's open up Passage Guide. And my reference comes to Mark 1, 1 through 8. Go ahead and type that in. Now you may have a different set of commentaries appear in this section, and that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and click more to see all the commentaries that I have in my library. Now, in a long list like this, how can you tell the difference between a single volume commentary and a multi-volume commentary? Well, it comes down to one key feature. Single volume commentaries will lack the specific book name in the title. So, for example, word pictures in the New Testament, word studies in the New Testament, as well as Bible knowledge commentary and Bible exposition commentary, all of those resources lack the specific Bible book name in the title. Or in other words, these resources cover all the books of the Bible. Multi-volume commentaries, on the other hand, will have the specific Bible book name in the title. So, for example, the New International Greek Testament Commentary, the Gospel of Mark. And you can see this one here as well, the Gospel according to St. Mark, the Gospel according to Mark, Mark, Having a specific Bible book name in the title means that it's a part of a multi-volume set. It's part of a commentary series. Sometimes the series only covers a few other books in the New Testament, and sometimes it covers the entire New Testament. Let's take a look first at a single volume Bible commentary. The one I want us to look at is the Bible Knowledge Commentary. Now, as we look at this resource, we want to take note of two things: how this resource is organized, and what kind of information it includes on the books of the Bible. The table of contents here shows us that this resource is organized the same way our English Bibles are organized. And scrolling down, we can see an overview of the section on the Gospel of Mark. Now, this resource opened up at the commentary section because, well, we started our passage guide search with Mark 1:1, and so that's what we have here. But I also want to show you that there is introductory material to the Gospel of Mark. This is material similar to what we saw in our Bible dictionaries. A discussion about who wrote the Gospel of Mark, what sources were used, when it was written, different characteristics, different themes, and also included is an outline, like what we saw in the Bible dictionaries as well. And like New Bible Dictionary, this resource organizes its outline geographically. So Jesus in Galilee, his later ministry in Galilee, and then down on to his journey to Jerusalem. And this resource offers commentary, verse by verse. Here it tells us a little bit about verse 1 and what's going on with the word gospel, what it means, what the Gospel of Mark actually refers to, that the word gospel is associated with the Old Testament. And so the commentary tells us something more to help us understand the passage. And you can see here in the article that there's some use of transliteration. And the structure that you see over here, Jesus' early Galilean ministry, introductory summary, Jesus' message. These headings match the same headings we saw in the outline. So, Jesus' early Galilean ministry, as well as introductory summary of Jesus' message. And now let's take a look, just for comparison, at another single volume Bible commentary. All the way down here at the end, or at the bottom, we have Holman Concise Bible Commentary. This resource has grouped books of the Bible together under headings here. For example, Mark belongs to the Gospels. And like the other commentary, there's a bit of discussion about who wrote it and to whom. Discussion about the theme of the book, its form, and its purpose and theology. It's then followed by a section-by-section commentary. This section-by-section commentary, as opposed to verse-by-verse commentary, is a bit more typical for single-volume Bible commentaries. These are great resources for getting the big picture, asking the types of questions like, what's going on at this point in the book? Or maybe you want to walk through an entire passage or section of Scripture. If you need more detail and you want to look at books that use more original languages like Greek and Hebrew, then you want to look at multi-volume commentaries. So let's look at the New American Commentary on Mark. And let's start out first by looking at how the content of this book is organized. Notice that there are no other books of the Bible included here. All the contents focus around an outline for this one specific book. Unlike the Bible dictionaries and single-volume commentaries, there is an outline here. And this outline seems to be centered around this phrase, good news. The good news about Jesus' proclamation of the kingdom of God. Scrolling far down. The good news about Jesus' teaching on discipleship. The good news about Jesus' death. And you'll notice that this outline is much longer than anything that we've seen before. That's because multi-volume commentaries are designed for detail. Like the other resources we've seen up to this point, there's introductory information, but the discussion you'll find is much more detailed, much longer. Now, just for comparison, let's take a look at the amount of commentary that's given to Mark 1:1 in the New American Commentary and the Holman Concise Bible Commentary. Here we have 3 paragraphs for these verses. On this other resource, we have several paragraphs just for that one verse.